A CEO fires his assistant of 8 years. Then, and I need you to really hear this, he demands that she still book his honeymoon. $22,000. The Maldives. First class everything. She did exactly what he asked. And when he arrived at the airport with his brand new wife, TSA wouldn't let him board. His passport? Damaged. Flagged. Unusable. She knew. She just didn't mention it. You're about to hear 3 stories. 3 executive assistants. 3 arrogant bosses who made the same mistake. They forgot who actually runs their lives. See, in every company there's a gatekeeper. She books your flights. She manages your calendar. She knows your passwords, your affairs, and where the bodies are buried, figuratively usually. You'd think these people would be treated like royalty. Instead, they get talked down to, dismissed, treated like furniture with a pulse. And that's fine. Most of them take it. But some of them take notes. Let's get into it. Our first story comes from Austin, Texas. A tech company. A quiet assistant. And a VP who really should have learned her name.
So I was the executive assistant to the CEO of a mid-sized tech company in Austin. I'd been there for about 6 years at this point. 34 years old. No drama. I just did my job. And look, I know people think being an EA is just answering phones and booking lunch reservations. It's not. I controlled that man's entire life. His calendar. His travel. His contacts. Every meeting request went through me first. If the CEO didn't know about it, it didn't exist. Now, most executives understood this. They'd be polite to me because they knew I was the gateway to getting anything done. But there was this one VP, Marcus, VP of Sales. Marcus was one of those guys who made a lot of money and thought that made him important. He had this way of talking to me like I was, I don't know, a vending machine. Like I existed purely to dispense things for him. He'd walk up to my desk and just say, I need 30 minutes with the CEO. No please. No hello. Just a demand. At first, I let it go. That's the job, right? You deal with egos. But then it got worse. He started calling me sweetheart. In front of other people. I'd be in a meeting taking notes, and he'd say, sweetheart, can you grab me a coffee while you're up? I'm the CEO's assistant. I don't get coffee for VPs. But okay. Fine. I smiled. I moved on. Then came the day that broke me. He needed an urgent meeting with the CEO about the Q4 budget. Fair enough, it was a big deal. I told him I'd check availability. He literally snapped his fingers at me. Snapped. His fingers. Like I was a dog. And he said, chop chop, sweetheart. Some of us have real work to do. I smiled. And I decided right then that Marcus was never getting another meeting. See, here's the thing about controlling a CEO's calendar, you have absolute power. If I said there was no availability, there was no availability. No one questioned it. The CEO trusted me completely. So when Marcus's assistant emailed requesting that urgent Q4 budget meeting, I replied back, unfortunately, the CEO's schedule is completely packed for the foreseeable future. Earliest availability is in approximately 12 weeks. I'll keep you posted. 12 weeks. 3 months. Marcus was livid. He tried emailing the CEO directly. I screened those emails, flagged them as low priority, handle later. He tried stopping by the CEO's office. I scheduled working lunches and off-site meetings during those exact windows. The beautiful thing? He never suspected me. He just thought the CEO was genuinely busy. He started complaining to other executives about being frozen out. Meanwhile, his Q4 product launch got delayed because he couldn't get budget approval. His sales numbers dipped. By the time he finally got that meeting, 13 weeks later, the damage was done. He got put on a performance improvement plan 6 months after that. And the best part? He still calls me sweetheart. And I still smile. Because he has no idea.
The calendar block. A slow, quiet suffocation. Marcus never knew what hit him. He probably still doesn't. That's the elegance of it. The perfect revenge is invisible. But our next story? The assistant wasn't interested in subtlety. She wanted her boss to feel it. Every cramped minute of it. And when you spend 14 hours in transit, crammed into a middle seat next to a screaming infant, trust me, you feel it. Let's talk about Priya. Chicago. A financial services firm. An assistant who takes meticulous notes. And an executive who really should not have screamed at her in front of the entire floor.
I was 29 when this happened. Executive assistant to David, a senior managing director at a big finance firm in Chicago. The kind of place where everyone wears Patagonia vests and talks about crushing it. David was fine at first. Demanding, sure. But most executives are demanding. That comes with the territory. What made David special was his temper. This man could not regulate his emotions. If something went wrong, even slightly wrong, he would explode. Full volume. In front of everyone. And because I was his assistant, I was usually the closest target. For 2 years, I absorbed it. The yelling. The blame. The way he'd throw his hands up and say, "Do I have to do everything myself?" I told myself it was just work. I told myself I was being professional. Then came the Singapore incident. David had a huge investor meeting in Singapore. We're talking major clients, major stakes. My job was to book everything: flights, hotels, car service, dinner reservations. I did all of it. Perfectly. Except I made one small mistake. The hotel check-in date. I booked it for the 15th instead of the 14th. He was arriving on the 14th. 1 day off. Now, was it fixable? Absolutely. I caught it the day before. I called the hotel, they had availability, I adjusted the booking. Crisis averted. But I made the mistake of telling David about the error. You know, being transparent. Professional. He waited until our Monday morning team meeting. 15 people in the room. And in front of everyone, he said, and I quote, "Priya almost cost us the Singapore deal because she can't read a calendar." I swear to God, I'm surrounded by incompetence. 15 people staring at me. I didn't cry. I didn't react. I just nodded and said, "It's been corrected." But inside? Something shifted. I realized I wasn't going to quit. I was going to stay. And I was going to make him pay for every single moment of humiliation. 2 months later, David had another international trip. London this time. Very important conference. He told me to book it, but don't screw it up this time. I said, of course. And I booked him the worst travel experience of his life. First, economy class. Now, company policy technically allowed business class for international travel, but I discovered a memo about cost-cutting measures. I forwarded it to David with a note that said, "Unfortunately, finance is requiring economy for all non-client-facing travel." That memo? It was from 3 years ago. It had been rescinded. But David didn't know that. Second, the layover. I could have booked him a direct flight from Chicago to London. 8 hours, easy. Instead, I booked him through Frankfurt. With a 6-hour layover. I told him it was the only option available at the approved budget level. Third, the seat. Middle seat. Row 34. Right next to the bathrooms. I called the airline and specifically requested that configuration. I told them he had a medical condition that required proximity to the restroom. Now here's the thing about David, he's 6'3". And I knew from checking the flight manifest that the window seat in his row was booked by a passenger traveling with an infant. I didn't plan that part. But I didn't unplan it either. The morning of his flight, David texted me, "Where's my seat assignment?" I sent it. He called me screaming. "Middle seat? Are you kidding me?" I said, "I'm so sorry. The airline oversold business class. Budget restrictions meant I couldn't upgrade. There was nothing I could do." He hung up on me. When David landed in London, after 6 hours cramped between a bathroom and a crying baby, after a 6-hour layover in Frankfurt, after 14 hours of travel that should have been 8, he looked like he'd been through a war. He bombed the conference presentation. He was irritable, exhausted, and apparently fell asleep during a networking dinner. When he got back, he yelled at me about the airline's incompetence. I nodded sympathetically. "These budget cuts are brutal," I said. "I'll escalate it to finance." I never escalated anything. And every trip after that? I found little ways to make them just slightly worse. Tight connections. Early departures. Hotels that were the only ones available but happened to be 30 minutes from the conference venue. He never connected it to me. And I know this sounds petty. It is petty. But when someone humiliates you in front of 15 colleagues, petty feels pretty good.
Priya played the long game. A slow, grinding torture disguised as bureaucracy. David never figured it out. To this day he probably blames corporate budget cuts for his travel misery. But both of these stories share something in common. The target survived. Inconvenienced. Humiliated. But functional. Our final story? There's no coming back from this one. When a CEO fires his assistant of 8 years, then demands she still book his honeymoon, he's not just arrogant. He's stupid. And stupid has consequences. $22,000 worth of consequences. New York City. A corner office on the 40th floor. An executive assistant who gave 8 years of her life to a man who treated her like furniture. And a honeymoon that never happened.
I was Jonathan's executive assistant for 8 years. 8 years. I started when I was 33. He was just a VP then. I helped build his career. I was there when he got promoted to SVP. Then EVP. Then, finally, CEO. I knew everything about him. His kids' birthdays. His ex-wife's lawyer's name. His allergies, his gym schedule, his therapist appointments. I knew that he cheated on his first wife with his personal trainer. I knew that he expensed business dinners that were actually dates with the woman who would become wife number 2. I knew all of it. And I kept my mouth shut. Because that's the job. For 8 years, I thought we had an understanding. I was loyal. Discreet. Indispensable. Apparently, I thought wrong. Here's what happened. Jonathan got engaged to Stephanie. She was 28. He was 52. She was his Pilates instructor, because of course she was. Now, Stephanie decided she didn't like me. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew too much about Jonathan's past. Maybe because I accidentally called her by his ex-wife's name once. Maybe she just didn't like that another woman had that much access to her fiancé. Whatever the reason, she started making comments. Why is Claire always around? Can't you get a younger assistant? She's so severe. And Jonathan? The man I had protected for 8 years? He caved. One Thursday afternoon, he called me into his office. He couldn't look me in the eye. "Claire, the company is restructuring. We're eliminating your position." Restructuring. Right. I asked if there was anything I could do. He said no. I asked about severance. He said HR would handle it. 8 years, and I got a form letter and 2 weeks' pay. But here's where it gets good. My last day was supposed to be Friday. But that morning, my last morning, Jonathan came to my desk with a stack of papers. "Before you go, I need you to finalize the honeymoon bookings." I stared at him. He was asking me, the woman he just fired, to book his honeymoon. The honeymoon with the woman who got me fired. And he said it like it was nothing. Like I owed him this. It's the Maldives. Everything's in the file. First-class flights, the overwater villa, the spa packages. Just confirm it all and send me the itinerary. $22,000. I saw the receipts. I smiled and said, "Of course, Jonathan. Happy to help." He nodded and walked away. Didn't even say thank you. Now, here's the thing. When you manage someone's life for 8 years, you know where everything is. Including their passport. Jonathan kept his passport in his office safe. And I had the combination, because I was the one who booked all his travel. I'd renew that passport for him twice. So while I was confirming his honeymoon bookings, I pulled up his passport file. And I noticed something interesting. 6 months ago, Jonathan had spilled coffee on his passport. Just a little bit, on the corner of the photo page. I'd flagged it at the time, suggested he get it replaced. He waved me off. It's fine, it's barely noticeable. It was noticeable enough. I also noticed that his passport was set to expire in about 6 weeks. Now, most countries require your passport to be valid for at least 6 months beyond your travel dates. The Maldives definitely did. Jonathan's honeymoon was in 5 weeks. His passport would expire 4 weeks after that. He was going to be denied entry. And that's before you factor in the water damage. Now, a good assistant would flag this. A good assistant would say, "Hey, Jonathan, we need to renew your passport before the trip." But I wasn't his assistant anymore. He'd made that very clear. So I finalized the bookings. First-class flights. The villa. The spa. Everything perfect. And I left a note on his desk that said, "Honeymoon confirmed. All set. Congratulations." I did not mention the passport. 3 weeks later, I was at home. It was a Saturday morning. I was drinking coffee and reading a book. My phone buzzed. It was a text from a former coworker, one of the admins who I'd stayed friendly with. Oh my God. Did you hear about Jonathan? I had not heard about Jonathan. But I was about to. Apparently, Jonathan and Stephanie showed up at JFK for their first-class flight to the Maldives. Designer luggage. Matching linen outfits. Instagram ready. They got to the check-in counter. And the agent took one look at Jonathan's passport and said, "Sir, I can't accept this. Water damage. Expiring too soon." Either one would have been enough. Together? He wasn't going anywhere. They tried to argue. Jonathan apparently made a scene, demanded a supervisor, threatened to call his lawyers. You know, rich guy stuff. Didn't matter. TSA doesn't care how much money you make. They missed the flight. The villa was non-refundable. The flights were non-refundable. $22,000, gone. And Stephanie? According to my source, she was furious. Not at the airline. At Jonathan. How could you not check your passport, she kept saying. Who doesn't check their passport before an international trip? Jonathan blamed the airline. He blamed TSA. He blamed his former assistant for not flagging it. But here's the thing, I was his former assistant. He fired me. Confirming passport validity for someone who just terminated me? That's not my job anymore. I was asked to book the honeymoon. I booked the honeymoon. I was not asked to manage his life. Not anymore. Last I heard, Stephanie is still bringing up the honeymoon disaster. In arguments. In therapy. Apparently, it's become a symbol of how Jonathan doesn't pay attention to details and takes things for granted. Their marriage is not going well. And me? I'm doing fine. Got a new job 3 weeks later. Better pay, better boss, better everything. But sometimes, on quiet Saturday mornings, I think about Jonathan standing at that TSA checkpoint. Designer luggage at his feet. New wife screaming at him. $22,000 evaporating. And I smile. Because you don't fire someone after 8 years and then ask them to book your honeymoon. That's not how this works.
3 stories. 3 assistants. 3 men who made the same mistake. They forgot who actually runs things. See, there's this idea in business that power flows downward. The CEO gives orders and everyone below just obeys. But that's not how it works. Not really. The person who books your flights can strand you in Frankfurt. The person who controls your calendar can freeze you out for months. The person who manages your documents can let you walk into a trap of your own making. Power isn't just about titles. It's about access, information, control. And if you treat the gatekeeper like they're nothing, don't be surprised when the gate closes behind you. If you made it this far, you already know the rules. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment below. Which story hit hardest? Let me know. More cases next day.